are getting started here in the Toastmaster meeting for August the 3rd, 2023 for Cincinnati TV Toastmasters Club. So welcome everybody. We have a small but enthusiastic club tonight, and we have a guest. I am so honored to meet our guest tonight. Thank you, everyone. I'm so glad to be here tonight and to talk a little bit about giving speech evaluations. One of the things that we know about Toastmasters is that it is about giving prepared speeches and learning to do impromptu speaking. But what happens is it's also really important to give evaluations and to receive evaluations, because Toastmasters is more than giving speeches. It is being part of a team, part of a club, and it is an essential part of being a Toastmaster to learn how to give great evaluations. One thing that I found out is that new speakers may make rookie mistakes. I will tell you, when I first came to my very first Toastmasters meeting, had not joined yet, I came in person to TV Toastmasters that was displayed on cable television, and they asked me if I would be willing to have just a 2 or 3 minute impromptu speaking engagement. Well, I was very nervous to even do something like that, but I thought I came here knowing that they put this out on TV, and I knew that I came here to play. I came to play the game. But when I got up there, I had no idea that they counted the number of ums that you said. So I don't remember and they count the so's as well. I don't really remember how many ums I had, but it's a rookie mistake. And when you're calling someone of all the great points that they made in their speech, it's also important to call out something they may have done that is a common mistake, but we all have opportunities to make mistakes in our speeches, and it's important to be tactful when you're giving someone feedback about their speech. I have found out that it is important to deliver feedback with kindness, because the speaker has had at least 2 weeks and sometimes longer to develop their content, to practice their content in front of a mirror, and to decide what they want to say and how they're going to say it. But when you do an evaluation, you're pretty much on the fly giving a presentation on the evaluation of someone else's work. And that is something that you have to remember. You are evaluating someone who is meant to take in your expertise, and they are listening to what you say, but it's also important to think how you say it can also have an impact on whether they really hear the feedback or not. And you're giving them feedback by the content that you give, but you're also wanting to make sure that they have understood you. And one way to make sure they understand what you're saying is think about how you say it. I also have learned a little bit about learning to focus on the feedback to receive and make improvements in how I deliver my material. And one way that sunk into me is that I had the same negative feedback more than once, and I had the same suggestion for improvement more than once. And what that improvement is, some of the folks who've given me that improvement are not here tonight, but what that improvement is to put more personal stories in my message. And I will admit that when I prepare what I'm going to talk about, fact, 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 that's just how I am. That's just who I am. And that's what I have done. And when I hear other people's speeches that give a little bit about their experience with that or what they have observed, I do realize, and it is important to have storytelling in your message. It isn't important to just deliver the facts. So I am learning a little bit more about focusing on what people are telling me and learning to incorporate feedback into my material. And by way of doing that, as Toastmasters, sometimes we are offered the opportunity to deliver the same speech a second time. And I did that recently also because it was one about speaking to an audience. And I focused on an arena full of people, a huge audience. And then I focused on a small conference room. You know, I really wanted to cover everything in the audience, but I didn't mention anything about whether I had spoken to a crowd of a crowded auditorium or whether I preferred to speak with just a conference room table of people. So I did deliver that speech the second time so that I could prove that I listened to the feedback and that I make improvements not only to the content, but to the delivery, to also incorporate what I learned from my evaluator. So that's just a little bit about my journey. So my journey does include taking the suggestions of ways to improve, and that is something that I am continuing to improve upon, and then also to give evaluations with the best intention to help the speaker improve, not just rattle off all of the things that I liked and said there is no way to improve, but if there's something you didn't catch or any piece of something that you could offer as feedback. We're not here to give advice. We're here to give feedback. And that is my goal, to be able to give feedback with the intention of helping the Toastmasters improve. So thank you for listening to a little bit about my journey and evaluating speeches tonight. Time to give our second, we're going to say it's part of our prepared speech portion of the program, but we have had a challenge to give our guest a topic. And Jeff, were you assigned to come up with that topic for Rabok?
Yes, and this is 4 to 6 minutes for Bach, is that correct?
Yes.
Just to make sure. Your topic is the benefits of a positive attitude. The benefits of a positive attitude.
Okay, guys, today I talk about a positive attitude. And what I talk about today is I talk about my own example of positive attitude and the difference that it makes. And then I talk about positive attitude in presenting. How can we apply a positive attitude to presenting and the benefits of that? So my own experience in positive attitude. And back, like, 70, 80 years ago, this was a long time ago, when I was an aerobics instructor. And aerobics instructor, it's like doing an apprenticeship. It takes you a couple of years to really get good at it, especially back in the 1980s, because aerobics was booming around the world. And where I was, Melbourne, it was an epicenter of world aerobics. And we had a champion, including Chris Kemp at that time. And I started teaching aerobics at the smaller gyms, and I started going pretty good. I got good numbers along, and it's all about getting numbers at aerobics. It's a commercial environment. And then I got an invite to teach at one of the leading gyms. And I thought, yeah, no worries, I'll show up. So I rolled up, and I'm pretty confident. Like you can tell, I'm pretty confident. I've got a bit of a head, a bit of an ego. And the gym manager there was so thankful. He's going, "Oh, I'm so rapt you turn up. Thanks for this." And I'm thinking, no worries, I'm rapt to come here to a leading gym. And then he says to me, "Tonight you're filling in for Chris Kemp, the world champion." I had to fill in for the world champion. Now, Chris Kemp is not just your normal a world champion. He has people following him around from gym to gym. They love him, and he's got blonde hair, he's got big muscles, and here I am, looking like a slob compared to Chris Kemp. And there's 200 people, or at least 100 people up in a room waiting for him. And I walk in. I've got my big Nike bag, Nike runners. They know I'm the instructor. And straight away, 20 of them, bang, straight out the door. No Chris Kemp. And I walk up to the stage and I welcome them. Another 5 walk out. I turn around, turn on the music, turn around, another 5 are walking out. Oh my God, they're walking out. They really want Chris Kemp. Anyway, I get the music going and more and more leave. And by the end of the class, there's 6 left, and they're sort of looking at me a bit embarrassed. I'm a little bit embarrassed, and that was a real shock. And I walk out, and you're taught in aerobics, always get feedback from anybody. And I went up to the manager, and the manager came, he saw me, and he was straight at me. And he says, Rabok, look, mate, the feedback is they reckon you've got ability, but you're just not confident enough. You're not confident enough, mate. You need to be more confident. I'm thinking, what? I've never got such pathetic feedback in my life. And I just walk out. I'm thinking that was a waste of time. Then I thought about it, and I realized I was filling in for Chris Kemp. Chris Kemp is super confident on the stage. He owns the stage. He's got these massive gestures. It's like Ricky Martin when he's on the stage. He's got massive gestures. These great stage people have great gestures, etc. And he was just over happy, really had the eye contact, really directed it at people. And I thought, I got to be more confident. That's what I got to be. I got to be super confident. It's not enough just to be confident. When you've got an audience that's big and confident, you need to be super confident. So it took me a while, took me a few meetings, but then I got super confident. And you know what? When I got super confident with that positive attitude, everything got easier. All the moves got easier. All the directions got easier. Eyeing people just became natural. And everybody responded to that leadership. And I think this is what we need when we speak in front of a big audience. You look at Donald Trump and you think, well, he's got a bit of an ego, how confident is he? But that's how you got to be on a large audience. So I learned from that, be confident, be super confident, not just confident, be super confident, and everything just gets a lot easier. So that's my experience. Now, how do we apply this to Toastmasters? I say, yeah, it's good to be a humble speaker at Toastmasters because we like humble speakers at Toastmasters. But if you want to take it a little bit further and get on the big stage where an audience pays, they expect something back. They expect you to be the leader. And I say this is where sometimes we got to be able to step up and really show that confidence and really lead if we need be, not always be gentle and nice. You've got to have that variation. You've got to be gentle and nice at sometimes all, but you got to have that ability to lead as well. And that comes with super confidence, not just confidence, super confidence, I say. So this is a challenge, guys. I say we got a perfect opportunity to do it here at Table Topics. At Table Topics, when you get the question, I say attack the question, attack it with super confidence. Use that as practice. That's a great thing about Toastmasters. We can come here and practice. We can be humble sometimes, but we can also be confident and always know that we're going to be supported by the audience. So that's my call to action, guys, is come to Toastmasters, be confident. Occasionally, sometimes practice being humble and nice. Sometimes practice being confident as well. So when you go on a real stage and in the real world, you can be confident. You can be the leader if need be. Okay, I hand back.
Today is our August 19th Toastmaster meeting.
Table topics. I think, Veronica, you said you were on table topics today. So
yes, absolutely. And I would like to focus on those who do not have speaking roles today. And the speakers today are Joy and Jeff. So turning it first over to Dave Delahanty. Hi, Dave.
Hello. How you
Can you
doing?
give an example? Good. Are you okay being timer and table topics for the moment?
Okay, I had to fix my timing. Okay.
Great.
Now, what was-
Thank you.
okay. Okay.
Can you give an example of somebody who is completely wholehearted? Can you please give an example of somebody who is completely wholehearted? Or I'll give you an alternative. How would you like to exhibit wholehearted behavior?
Wholehearted behavior, that I think that would be a person that would go the extra, the mileage in a lot of cases, and to actually set the example on how to have integrity in your life, and how to you know, set goals, and also be patient at the same time, because some people may fail at times. So you have to show them diligence and patience for them to achieve what they want to. And back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Dave. Janet, I give you the option of taking on either those two questions, or would you like to give an example of how your husband has exhibited wholehearted behavior in the past? Would you like me to repeat the question?
I think I understand the question. Okay.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay. So my table topic question is around wholeheartedness and how people have exhibited, particularly my husband. I would say that my husband is wholehearted about trying to fix things. We had a lawnmower that someone had given him because this other fix it, and he just gave it to my husband in case he could fix it, and said he could keep it if he fixed it. And my husband worked on it for over 2 months. He listened to YouTube, and it was funny listening to the accents, the kind of laid back farmer style YouTubes that people present when they're talking about how to fix your lawnmower. And he finally, after a couple months, listened to the right YouTube that gave him and to check something, and yes, a wire was crossed, and he did fix it and got it sold. So he wholeheartedly tried to this lawnmower to get it fixed, and so did off of Craigslist.
Wow, how fun. Okay, Rod, tag you're it, our third and last table topics. And I know from hearing you in the past, sometimes you've taken on the assistant or a minister's role when the minister is absent. Can you give an example of a speech, a preaching that you gave, which either talked about wholeheartedness or circled around the topic? Or you can answer any of the other questions that I've asked other people, or be like a politician and just talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. I think just the subject of Christ and what he did for us, and getting up in front of people to be able to talk about that, or even talking to a person one-on-one, you have to have wholeheartedness in your faith. You have to believe in what you're talking about, because if you don't, it's going to be noticeable. People are going to see that. And it's going to be kind of a useless conversation if you're just hemming and hawing around trying to grasp at words of what you are trying to talk about. So you have to have the wholeheartedness of staying in scripture, reading it, so that when you do talk about different things in scripture, you know where it's at, and you can say, okay, here you can find this, or here you can find that, or so-and-so said this, or so-and-so said that. It becomes a life, which then is you wholeheartedly into it and can really grasp what you're trying to say, and let the Holy Spirit guide you in your words, and know that he can do that and trust in that. That would be my take on the wholeheartedness of what you had mentioned in your question.
Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster, today. Thank you.
Okay, that brings us now to the speaking part of our meeting. And Jeff is the evaluator for our, or no, Jeff is the first speaker, and Joy is the evaluator for our speaker today. So Joy, if you would introduce the speaker, we'll get into that aspect.
Thank you, Ron, Toastmaster of today. I am honored to introduce Jeff Vaught, who is going to speak to us today on what motivates you. And I understand that this speech is a work in progress speech that will eventually be delivered as a pathway project, but it's not quite ready for prime time. It examines ideas and theories around motivating needs of individuals and why they are important to understand. What motivates you, John Vaught. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. What motivates you? I understand that we may have some dog lovers in the audience today, so I'm going to start with talking about my dogs for a moment, and then we'll transition to humans. This is a picture of my dog, and my daughter is holding the dog. We have two dogs, and this one's a hound dog, and this dog is solely motivated by food. I can see the shock on everybody's face. Really? Food? She's a hound dog. We adopted her and she was in a shelter, but she was a stray. So she went hungry for, so many months. She was out on the street hungry. And now we've had her now, she's 16 years old. She will stand on her front paws and spit quarters to get a treat. She'll do anything she can do to get a treat. The second dog we have is an adopted greyhound. Surprisingly, he's a big dog. He's 70 pounds. You would think he would also be motivated by food, but the opposite is true. He could give or take, he could take it or leave it as far as treats go. He is solely motivated by praise. But we're not here to talk about dogs. We're here to talk about humans. Now, there is an American psychologist. He did most of his work in the 40s and 50s, I believe, and he passed away perhaps in the late 90s, but his name is David McClelland. And he has this theory called motivating needs, or motivation theory. And essentially it's three things that he said every human is motivated by. And the first, it's achievement, affiliation, and power. So let me talk about power for just a moment. Power in this sense is a need for authority, or a need to control or influence people. It also spans a little further than that. It's even a need for reward, Or in the case of a job, it could be a motivating factor where you're looking for wealth or a salary, a higher salary. That can be an individual that he would group into this power setting. Or status, to be the vice president or a director, to get that title or that social status within an organization. So that's power. There's also a need for affiliation. Affiliation, as the name implies, this is connection with others. So an individual that is motivated by affiliation wants to connect or relate to others. They want to be accepted within a group, and they want to have status within a group. And the third is achievement. These are people that are driven to complete a task. Their reward isn't necessarily, they're not necessarily reward motivated. So they get to the end of the journey or they complete the task. They don't need anything. They don't need money or a certificate. It's just the completion of the task is the reward itself. So these are those types of people. Now I can tell you where I fall on this list. If you look at these three circles, you probably can't see my pointer here, but I'm up in the achievement affiliation area. So, and I'm lean over in the achievement. So I'm in the green area for sure, but kind of heading towards the purple affiliation, from somewhere in that space. I'm curious how other where they would see themselves on this chart. What would be your dominant motivator on this list? Yeah, Joy.
Before you even said it, I identified myself in the achievement category, because I've had people ask, what does a project manager do? And unless they want a long list, or how do you really succeed, you check off things that are done. And so I like the drive to succeed.
That is when you read more of the material, they talk about having lists. I'm sitting at my desk right now and I have pads and pads of paper. All of them have lists on them. And, you know, when I check off one of those boxes, I feel good about it. So yeah, definitely that puts me in the achievement category as well. So it sounds like you're the same. What about Ron? Where would you fit on this list? Like, what would be your dominant motivator?
As with you enjoy achievement, as with Janet's husband, I'm always fixing things. For example, I've started a hobby on watch repair. And once I start on a watch and get it torn apart, get it cleaned, and inspect all the parts, and then start putting it together and oiling the various parts that need to be oiled, I've just got this goal in mind to get it done and see if it works when I'm done. And that's my goal, whether it's fixing a watch, whether it's working on something in the house that's not working right, that I have to try and fix. And I do a lot of what Janet's husband did. YouTube is a savior on many things.
For sure.
So yeah, achievement, coming up with something and getting it done.
Yeah, and it's, in your case, you're not trying to sell the watch. You're not trying to make any monetary gain out of it. It's just, again, the satisfaction of actually achieving. So very interesting. So we have two achievers, and I definitely fall a little in there at that area, but I also probably hit the purple. I'd love to get others, but we're probably running a little short of time. The question is, why do we even care what motivates us? And I think there's two main reasons. One, when our needs are met, we're happier. So if you take somebody that is more of an achiever and you try to put them into a manager role, it's like oil and water. It's going against the grain. It's not that it's a bad thing necessarily. I was a manager for a few years in a company, hated every second of it. But I look back on it, I'm grateful to have had the time. It gives me a lot more insight and idea about what goes on in a manager's mind. So it was a great opportunity, but I would never want to do it again. So I fit into more of an individual contributor within the company. But nonetheless, that it's good to know that for yourself. I'm a lot happier when I'm not managing people. I think the second reason it's helpful to know when you're leading other people where they fit. It's helpful to know what motivates them. So, for example, again, you wouldn't want to motivate an achievement person to try to get them to be a manager, or you wouldn't want to put them in a team setting, somebody that is really independently oriented, like an achiever typically is, and try to put them into an affiliation type of setting where they're working closely with other people, and expect some great outcome. So yeah, it's good to know what motivates other people. So in conclusion, just consider where you lie on this chart and where others lie on this chart so that you can better influence them. And I need to work on the ending of this. I will turn it back to the Toastmaster. Thank you.
Next, Jeff, you are the evaluator for Joy's speech. So if you could give us some information on what's coming up with that, please.
Yes, Joy Harris is working on her leadership development pathway, level 2. And the project is about managing time, which is a very relevant topic. No matter what, if you're retired like Dave and I and Ron and Janet, or if you're in the workforce, it's a very critical topic. So Joy Harris, where does the time go? Where does the time go? Joy Harris.
Thank you, Jeff. Someone will tell me if they're not seeing me and my slides. Where does the time go? I'm Joy Harris, and we've all asked ourselves, where does the time go? To quote someone very famous, it's my mother, Beatrix Amanda Barnhart Bennett, and I grew up with this quote: if you want something done, ask a busy woman. An idle woman will never find the time. So that is the philosophy that I learned as a child. If you want team members and something to get done, ask a busy person, because an idle person will never find the actual time. So we say, why time management? Well, I'm here to tell you, you can't manage time. There is 24 hours in every day. There's the same number of minutes for everybody. There are the same number of seconds into time. It's what you do with that time that becomes important. So we say, why manage time? We manage time to see things accomplished and to actually get things done. And a lot of the ways to get things done is to think about the short-term goals as well as your long-term goals. And I am the type of person who sets resolutions. And I do set resolutions at the beginning of the year. I did this year and last year. But I will resolve on a Tuesday, this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to react. And I have a new resolution. But our goals are made up of smaller goals and tasks to actually get to accomplish the objective. One thing that works for me is to build habits. So we ask, where does our time go? And one way to find out where our time goes is to actually track it. So I could speak on time management for a long time. There are many different ways to take this, but if you're trying to determine where your time goes, when you start tracking it, you will find out that there are many ways that our time slips away from us. And I have built a habit. One of my coaches this spring suggested that we use spring cleaning to clean out our computers and to unclutter our inboxes and to delete old files. And I started that habit in the spring. I started that suggestion, and it now has become a habit, which is a lot quicker for me. Now I have a process to unsubscribe from things that I'm not really looking at, and to literally be a better tracker of where my time goes. We were cautioned to recognize our resistance, and I can recommend the book The War of Art. And yes, I said that right, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. And that is such a good book about resistance. Now, it's about clearing writer's block. So that book will talk about the resistance to getting started. And one of the things that accomplishes your goals is to start. And the next thing that everyone must do is continue. And the other thing is to finish. So you don't actually get to your goals without recognizing where your resistance is. Is it the resistance to start, continue, or actually finish a project? And some people only have resistance in one of those stages. So we have been asked to look at our free time. If you take a week and put down obligations and really determine, well, how much free time do I have to work on my goal or my objective or project? We've also been asked to look at how our distractions, how we can minimize distractions, because distractions eat up our free time. And then there's a 10-minute rule that say, well, work on the things you avoid for just 10 minutes. And that way, if you worked on it for 30 minutes or even 15, you have a success. I worked on something that I resisted for such a long time. The time block to-do list, as I said, I could talk about this forever, but it is important. I have had to-do lists that are increments of 15 minutes. Now, of course, you can take your arrow and go down for a full hour, but I literally was living every 15 minutes. I knew what I was going to be doing. Now I block my time in 3-hour increments, and it could be 3 hours of rest, 3 hours of meditation, 3 hours of quiet time, but I do block my time based on knowing that I want to get things done. I have to do that in the morning and do that in the afternoon. There's also the type of to-do lists that mark next actions. So if you keep more than one to-do list, you may want to mark on there what is the next action. And the next action might be simply looking up the phone number of who you needed to call, or asking a question to just get started. So next actions will make your to-do list broken down into what's really important. And what I learned back in the 90s, I was fortunate enough to be part of a management team. And they said, we're going to have 3 months of Stephen Covey talking to us about the 7 habits of highly effective people. Well, I thought, Stephen Covey is coming here? And we were meeting in a huge conference room. Well, it was a screen, and it was a really big screen, and it was a presentation they had purchased, but I learned so much. He was listed as the top 25 people in Time magazine that year, and I literally thought he was going to be there. But Stephen Covey has been with me for a long time. But what I learned just recently in school is the book Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity by David Allen. And David Allen says to have a to-do list, or to mark your to-do list with the someday maybes. And I do have a maybe folder on my inbox, and I may never get to the maybes, and it's easier to delete out of the maybes when they've been there too long. And it's also a success when you do something out of the someday maybes. So I'm here to remind you to recognize your successes no matter how small, celebrate your wins, and keep producing ideas and finding the time to meet your goals and your accomplishments. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening. Back to you, Toastmaster.